I
Look,
was
this is
making a
simple. Just
point
go
and he
back to
cut
the
in
water.
halfway. What I'm saying is there's multiple words. These words are not arbitrary. The horizon is horizontal. The sea is level. A salt flat is fucking flat. The Great
Okay.
Plains are fucking plains.
All
They're
right,
fucking
Ron.
plain
If
surfaces.
the central point,
Riding, could you hear me talking, mate? Don't bulldoze me, mate. Don't bulldoze me. Calm down, Ron. All right, you made the point. SE, you wanted to have a go there. I thought you tried to get in before.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'd love to have a go with eggshells. Sure,
Yeah, go for it, buddy.
eggshells. You there, eggshells?
of course.
So we're on the boat. We're on the water now, me and you, right? We're on a flat surface. Let's find a. Let's pretend we're on a lock system.
Right.
Can I just check though?
Just let him go.
Come on, I need to ask a question. Is this immediately begging the question, or are you asking me to accept that water's flat?
I'm not asking you to do anything that you don't want.
Okay.
I'm asking you to have a conversation. If you want to have it, it's fine. If you don't, no problem.
Great. Okay. So we're on a boat.
We're on the water now, right? Me and you. We're on two boats. We're on a. Let's say we're on a lock system, right? We find the lock system. Let's say 12 miles, right? We have perfectly calm water. We're on a boat. Me and you. The boat is nose to nose, right? With me so far?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So now we start going backwards. We hit the reverse and the boat start going backwards. Now these are little dinghies. We're about 6 foot off the ground. And the boats start going backwards. How does the water appear to me and you between the boats?
There could probably be a variety of ways to describe it, but probably something like at a certain point there would be a hump in between us. Whether it would be perceptible or not might be a different question.
A hump of water. Let's say how long and how far would you say that is?
Oh, I've got no idea. Well,
your model says three miles, right? The drop starts at 3 miles. An observer 6 foot high. Would you agree with that? That's what your model says?
Sure. Yeah, we can go with that.
Okay, so the boats start going backwards now. So you're saying at around 3 miles, there should be like a hump appearing of water?
Sure. Like, I mean, I don't think it appears at 3 miles. I think there is always going to be a hump, but I guess you mean a point at which it starts to obscure by degrees the bottom of the one boat as viewed from the other.
Correct. So you're saying there's actual physical hump of water that obscures the boats, correct?
Yeah, that's what I think the model says, and I think the model's probably right.
Right now, doesn't your model also say that the water starts to drop immediately from wherever we are on your globe?
Yeah.
So
if you mean drop,
so
we've been having a bit of an issue about the drop, but sure. It's not which is it? What do you mean which is it? It's both. How could it be one or the other?
So let's say now boat A, the person on boat A, he sees a drop. When he looks at the water, he sees a drop. Like looking down from his hull, like let's say, right? Looking out into the water, he sees a drop.
I'm not sure. Is that a question?
Yeah, that's a question. Yeah, according to your model.
Okay. So let's put it this way. Let's say the boats are 3 miles apart, maybe a bit more, and there is a barely perceptible but apparent hump in front of one boat. Let's say I'm looking from my boat to your boat, and there is a hump just in front of your boat. When we say the hump, what do we mean by sea level? It means 0 sea level, correct?
So let me get this straight now. There is 0 sea level in between the two boats, but there's a hump there.
So can I finish my questions, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure.
So that would be 0 off the water because it is the water, right?
You're asking me this. You're asking me this.
Well, I'm saying right as in correct it if you don't agree. Otherwise, let me keep going.
No, I don't agree with that. No. Okay, your model. Hold on. Let me finish. You asked me a question. Your model states that the water drops immediately from the boat, correct?
I'm trying to explain. I'm trying to explain it, and you're not. I feel like you're not letting me. Would it be okay if I had to go for a bit and then you go back to your points?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, so So when I look and I see the hump of water, what I'm seeing is 0. It's on the water. Are my eyes on the water, or are they raised off the water?
You can have them anywhere you want. Doesn't
Right. So I'm going to put them as
you can
raised.
have your eyes up, down, sideways, whatever makes you comfortable.
Great. Okay. So with my eyes above the water, even though the water from right underneath me is going to be dropping away from me, if you want to put it like that, I'm not going to see a hump yet until 3 miles. That's the point at which things are going to, rather than sort of moving towards that hump, are going to start disappearing behind that hump because it's curving away from the feet, from underneath my feet.
So you're saying that the water starts to drop, and then it becomes a hump at around 3 miles?
I'm struggling to understand how you're struggling to understand this.
No, I'm struggling to understand how you're not explaining this properly. You say, you just agreed, there's a drop from your boat, correct?
Do you want me to draw it? I'll draw it for you.
I don't care what you do, dude.
Okay, I'll draw it for you. I'll share
Well,
my
I actually, I kind of want to writing. I know you've come up with a lot of kind of questions and co-points, but I kind of want to hear where Essie's actually getting with it. So if you want, Essie, maybe walk us through it.
His point.
Well, I
want to
bring him through a phase
dropping
of
away from under your feet and having a hump.
Sorry?
Sounded like your point was, how can it both be dropping away from your feet and having a hump that's not under your feet, wasn't it?
Well,
basically,
sort of. I'm trying to understand. Or the other question would be, if you're seeing a drop, right, like you said, what does the other boat see from that side, from the other side, when he looks at the water?
Same thing.
So you see a drop, and he sees a drop, but somehow at 3 miles, that double drop becomes a hump. Is that what you're saying?
So that's exactly what I think SE is saying. I'm still pretty much right on what SE is saying. It's just really. So here's how I draw it. I'm going to draw a hump with gradations between it. Sorry, I meant to be showing my screen. Oh no, I am. All good.
Don't you have to? Let me say this. If you have a vertical into a globe and then you have a horizontal, and you're essentially on the Earth and you're looking off into space, as it were. If you're looking off, well, what I mean into space, you're looking, perpendicular from the vertical, in that horizontal, you're looking off into space, as it were. So you would never see a hump. It's just gonna drop away. It would only drop away. But if you
would think, right, Gio? You would think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it would only drop away. But then if you are looking at two things at like 3 miles, you then, what I would think on a globe is you'd be looking down into the globe at that point. And as now that you're looking down, you're not actually looking horizontal. So you're not shooting off into space. Now you're looking into the water essentially, and you're seeing the hump between.
Exactly. Gio's got it, which is your eye is above the water and you are looking down because your at elevation's 10 foot above the water. And so if what you're looking at is the water, which is at 0, you've gone from 10 to 0. So you are definitionally on either model looking downwards. So that's why you can see a hump over there. Whereas exactly as Gio is saying, if you look off immediately horizontally, then sure, it's going to all appear moving away from you. But how could you have, let me turn the question around, SE. How could you have one of those things, the hump, without the water dropping away from you?
Don't ask me. That's your model. First of all, I don't see two boats there. I just see one thing there. So
I can draw boats.
Maybe you want to revise. You want to put maybe a different, maybe two boats, because I just see one boat there.
Well, I didn't know I'd need that much. Okay, so
I would say this. Let me say this real quick. If you have two boats, like two people in two boats, let's say they're however many miles away. If they're both looking exactly horizontal from the vertical radius to the globe Earth, that idea, and they're looking completely horizontal, they would never see each other because the point at which they're looking would meet somewhere above the globe. And actually, it's a way to actually measure. There's actually a way to measure the Earth that way using lasers and seeing where they meet in the air. But anyways, but if you then wanted to see the hump between you and that thing on a globe, you would literally have to angle your head down a little bit because now you're not looking at, then you're looking down, and then they would both see the hump, or they would see each other.
Yeah. So
I don't think you're thinking of this properly, Gio. Seriously, bro.
I don't think you are, SE.
No, I think you're both confused here. Okay, look at the boat here now, right?
All right, Writing, let's let SC respond because I want to hear his full thoughts on it. Go ahead.
Right, Gio and eggshells. Look at the two boats there, right? show me a drop. Where's the drop?
Hold on. Did you post one?
You posted a picture in the chat.
Riding posted a couple, but I see you talking about one that you posted, or you talking about his?
No, the one that he has on screen now.
Oh, on his, is he sharing?
Yeah, he's sharing, Joe. Yeah.
And I'm
But
also
it's,
putting
it's
them in the
also
chat.
the one he posted in the chat. Okay, I'm with you now. Sorry, my bad.
Okay, now
So-
show me the drop there, Gio.
If this, okay, let's say the boat on the top. If he's in a horizontal, it would all be drop away from his viewpoint, right?
I'll
Right.
draw that line. If he's looking out straight.
But if
it's all
these
gonna
two guys wanted to look at each other and see the hump, they would have to angle their sight down to look into the ball.
Gio's got
Yeah,
it.
but where's the drop? Where's the drop on the boat on the right?
It's exactly the same diagram. Oh, fuck. Okay, hang on. Here's the drop for the boat on the right.
Just rotate the diagram
So
to
you
your
have
left.
to change,
SD.
turn the dial. Yeah. You're starting to
it's the
get the
same thing.
ridiculousness of this now, Gio.
Oh no, I'm with you. It is. It's completely against all of geometry.
Or
All logic. Yeah, he's
any other
shifting
boat.
boats around on a ball. It's comical.
any other boat that's not on the top,
Stagger.
where would the drop be towards the other boat?
Exactly.
Wait, say that again, Rakia.
Are you guys really
Hold on,
asking
Hold
this
on.
question?
Hold on. I want to hear what Rakia said.
Any boat. He put the first boat on the top for a reason, because that's what his model dictates. Any other boat in any direction from the reference frame of that first boat, there would be no drop.
What are you talking about? What do you mean there's no drop?
See the boat on the right on the side of the ball you got there?
Right.
Where's his drop again?
Okay. You really
In
want me to
front
show
of
his
him.
drop? Okay, here we go. I'll show
Towards
his
the
drop.
other boat. Towards
No,
the
no.
first boat. The one on the
No,
top.
no. I've got. I'll be able to show you his drop. Just a second. It's going to look like this. There we go.
Is
Now
there-
he's got a drop.
Is there a hump in the middle?
I mean, yes.
No.
So there's a hump and a drop.
You disagree with Sean G then, huh? And you have both a hump and a drop?
How could you have? So I'm going to pause and let you guys answer this question as best you can. How could I have a hump without a drop, or a drop without a hump?
Oh,
That's your
I know.
That's
That
our
is
question
a
to
good
you.
point. That is a good point. I mean, okay, what's the difference between a hump and a drop? A drop, in my mind, would be at your elevation. It drops away from your elevation. A hump would be something that rises above your elevation and goes up.
Exactly.
And I'll explain
so-
it better. I thought you were going on mute. Hey, Gio, you were talking about Lake Pontchartrain earlier, 24 miles. I'm at one shore, Metairie. You're at the other shore, Mandeville. There's a hump of water in the middle, 12 miles away, 90 feet above our feet.
How is it 90 feet above your feet? Measured from what?
Because I thought you were on mute. Hey, Gio,
I didn't say that. I said I was going to ask you questions. How
you
is it
said
90
you
feet
were
above
going
you?
on mute and let us
No,
work
no.
through this. So I'm asking Gio specifically. The cord line is at our feet. If we're at the shoreline, our toes are in the water, right? The cord line is from our feet, cutting through the water, and 12 miles away, 90 feet above that cord line, which is our feet, there's water.
Right, exactly, because the cord line would be the actual equal elevation, but then they're claiming that there's that huge, essentially, hump in between the two equal elevations of the two viewers.
90 feet.
Yeah, so that's
24 miles.
Exactly that.
Why would
Yes.
elevation be a chord line?
because if you're at equal elevation, then like okay, if you're the real planar geometry of life is actual elevation, horizontal. So if you draw a chord from you to the other person, a straight line, that line is at an equal elevation if it's level and between those 2 points. But on a globe, you guys are claiming, you just take that elevation, you guys are now claiming that the Earth is spherical. So then there would have to be, like he was saying, that 90-foot, change in elevation if it were a globe.
It's actually
that's what I'm asking.
384.
I'm asking you to
It's
define
worse.
elevation, because to me, elevation means usually, in most of the times I would use it, I mean distance above sea level. I don't understand why I would go.
Okay, what
that's
he's
Yeah.
saying is
elevation
points,
based
equal
on a chord.
points.
Elevation,
that
there's
I
a reason that
drew.
Ella starts, there's a reason that the word elevation starts with ELE is because it's connected to level.
Aha.
But I'm still asking, how do you define what elevation is?
It's all measured above or below sea level, right? Your
Exactly.
elevation is above the sea level, and everything above the sea level.
Yeah, you just
And your
pulled up the
depth.
definition of it. So yeah, the first wait, go back to that definition.
I'm putting it up here.
Vertical
it says
change from sea level. Very simple.
right.
Exactly.
The action or fact of raising and it's too small now. I can't read it. The action or act of being there it is. The action or fact of raising or being raised to a higher or more important level, state or position.
Right, so that's clearly not what we're talking about because that's a verb of moving something. What we're talking about is number 2, height above a given level, especially sea level. So if we're talking about height above a given level, how could we describe the water as having a 90-foot elevation?
Okay, so Rakia, yeah, let's go back like to what you were saying. I want because I kind of responded in some of my thoughts, but I don't know if it's exactly what you were asking either. So if you want to kind of clarify or see or like wanted to hear more about what you wanted to say.
I'll clarify. Sea level is mean sea level. It's horizontal. It's a benchmark. It's a baseline. Vertical change from that gives you elevation. If you're 6 foot above sea level, it means from that horizontal benchmark, you're 6 feet above it. New Orleans is built with a levee system because it's below sea level. But when you go up on that bridge, you're above sea level. It's vertical change, up and down.
Above sea level, right. So what we're agreeing is sea level in a globe would be the level of the water. So how could of a singular body of water, how could some of it be at a higher elevation, 90-foot higher elevation than
exactly
another?
our
It's
point.
not.
Thank you.
It's not. Thank you. I'm standing. Okay, listen to me. Hear me out. If I'm standing at the beach on the North Shore, right, and my feet are in the water, and that water is 6 feet above me, sea level, then the other side of the South Shore is also 6 feet above sea level.
Yeah.
That water is horizontal also. That's where the baseline starts. That's what water does everywhere. It gives you a baseline.
This is what I keep saying is you just keep stating the conclusion, right? You're just going like, if it's horizontal and the water were curving and we lived on a flat plane, then sure, what you're saying makes sense. But
I didn't say the water was curving.
I know. If we live on a curved earth, a ball earth, and water curves, then all along that body of water, if it's at rest, is 0. It's the same elevation as itself.
No.
Not according to you. You would have to put that straight line, that horizontal would have to cut through the water, and in the middle of the two viewers.
Why?
You would
Why
have
would it do
water
that on a ball?
Well, that's your horizontal, right? The chord line or the tangent. That's how you get your drop or vertical change.
Chord line is not horizontal. No one
claims
is
looking
that.
into the earth.
A chord line is not a straight line.
It's called a datum.
It's not horizontal.
It's a straight line. It's not horizontal. Horizontal for this observer would look like that.
It's called a datum line. Datum.
It's called delusion. They see a perfectly straight bridge, exactly level, but somehow in their brain it's curving.
Okay.
And one of their boys, hold on, let me finish. One of their boys measured it, and he measured a 28.5 meter hump in the middle of the bridge. Now, you can say it this way or that way. It doesn't change that. He shows a curve, a drop from the hotel room. Now, you got to explain that. It's either dropping or humping, or it's level. Which one is it?
So I'm still trying to get an answer to the question. How could it have...
That's funny. The earth is humping.
How could it have a drop and no hump? How's
exactly. That is your problem to explain. Don't ask me that question, because I think water is level all the way through.
It would be a hump from the drawers.
It sounds like your objection, SE, is how could it be both a hump and a drop?
No, that's your problem. That's not my objection. No, sir. That's your claim. You have to back it up. You said before... Let me finish.
Can I please
You
finish?
said before it both drops from both boats. I distinctly heard you say that, and it humps in the middle. Now, don't try to turn that around on us. Explain your fantasy.
I'm not turning it around. You're not listening to the question. The question is, it sounds to me, unless I've got this wrong,
I asked the question.
Please shut the fuck up and let me finish.
No, you shut the fuck up. I asked you a question. You're turning it around on me now. You explain to me how it could be both dropping and humping at the same time. Go ahead.
Okay, and I did mute Writing just for a second. Writing, I want to mute you in a second, but I did want to because Rakia did say something. It links right into this. Rakia said something. Right? Do you remember, Rakia? Do you remember the last thing you said? Do you want to say it or?
Yeah, it would be a hump from the chord line and a drop from the tangent.
Yes, perfect. Yes, I'm going to unmute Writing, but yeah, Writing, did you get that? Or maybe it should even be said again because that's really the difference. And that's actually, SE, originally, that's actually what I was trying to say. I didn't say it that well. I didn't describe it as well as Rakia did, but I was trying to describe the difference between that tangent line, you know, the horizontal from the vertical plumb into a spherical radius versus essentially the chord where you are going to see that hump and like the difference between those.
Yeah, I'll use
Rakia, can you say that again, Rakia, if you don't mind?
Yeah, and I'll explain it with me and Geo being shore to shore again. But it would be a hump from the chord line and a drop from the tangent. So if me and Geo are at each shore 24 miles apart and our chord line is from our toes, right, connecting, then in the middle there would be a 90 feet raise of water. We'd have to, you know, look at that angle to look at the crest of the water or whatever, at the curve, at the arc. But if there's a tangent line at that 12-mile mark and the tangent line is touching the 12-mile mark only at that point and is parallel to the chord line, then at each of our feet, there would be that tangent line would be 90 feet above our feet.
Yep.
Good luck with that one.
There's no way around that.
That was some bullshit muting, in my opinion.
No.
So,
he had to mute one of y'all. He just muted you. So.
The question wasn't the question that SE asked me. That's the question you've answered. I think you've answered it well, Rakia. The question I'm asking SE is similar but different. So it's important to listen closely to what I'm saying. It sounds like he is incredulous that you could have both a drop and a hump. My question to him is, if it's ridiculous to have both of them, it sounds like what he's saying is you have to have one or the other. How could you possibly have one, i.e. a drop, but not a hump, or a hump, but not a drop? How could you get one, but not the other?
No, you're the incredulous one. In your model, sir, you need both. You have to have both. My position is you have stop talking when I talk. My position is
a direct question.
Yeah, and I'm answering it you directly. My position is the water neither drops or humps. Do you understand? That what I'm telling you is that is your model, and you have to explain that, sir. Do you get it?
Yeah, that's actually right. That's right to the key of the point. Hold on, let me just say that's right to the key of the point because does it hump or drop? Now, Writing, see the line, the red line that you have there,
which would be
come on.
Hold on,
through your circle.
He's asked me a question. This is getting ridiculous. Come on.
No, dude, I was just going to point out the difference. Let me just say real quick. On this circle, on your blue circle, you know how you have that chord line, that red line there?
Yes.
Going through. Okay. And so what Rakia was saying, that if you have two dudes hanging, you have that straight line, then that would be a hump, right? Because their feet are connected by the cord, so you'd have this huge hump.
I'm well aware. This is why I just agreed with what Rakia said. Rakia's was a good answer.
And then the tangent line, you kind of have one drawn over there on the left. You have that little circle. You kind of have one. I don't know. It's like a little squiggly. But that one would be a drop. And what? Yes. So what? Okay. So the thing is, what you have to respond to, I would think, is that SE just said, is there a hump or a drop? Can you measure that, observe that in any way, shape, or form? Because your model requires both, depending on it.
I feel like I'm in a crazy town. It sounded like SE's first position is, let's say we got two boats and they're looking at one another and the water's dropping away from both their feet.
Hold on, dude.
How can there be both?
Hold on.
What's this guy's problem, man?
I'm in the mute. If you're gonna do that stuff, you'll be muted. But please don't do that. If you want to start over and actually say your point, go ahead.
That was a good impression. You get to the mute.
No, it's just rude. What he's trying to do is, hold on. He has to confront this, and so it seems like he's trying to turn it into a dumpster fire, name calling crazy
I'm
things.
just trying to ask a really
Just
simple
don't
question.
do that and try to respond with a real answer.
So it's not a real answer. It's the simple question is, if SE is saying you can't have both a hump and a drop, show me how you could have one but not the other. If he's saying it's impossible for these things to both exist at the same time, it should be one or the other. Show me how one or the other could exist independently.
No, he's saying you can't have either.
That's right.
Then why would he say it that way? Why would he ask the question, how do you both have a hump and a drop? If he's
Just
saying
so you
Because
get
that's
triggered.
your
otherwise he would say you can have
fantasy.
neither a hump nor a drop. It's wrong. What you're
Dude.
saying is wrong, Rocky.
Well, here's the
Stop,
thing.
stop
Here's
talking.
the
Don't
thing,
get
Rodney.
triggered. It's your fantasy. I'm repeating to you the nonsense of your fantasy, sir, and you're getting triggered. I
Yeah,
understand.
I'm getting really frustrated by the moderation. I think this is some really low grade moderation.
Hey, well,
Wow.
Oh, that's a low
Wow,
blow
man.
there. That's a low blow, man.
Welcome to Flat Earth.
I expected a lot more out of you guys.
Correct question. How
it's
do you
out
have
of-
one?
Hold on, Roddy. You're trying to dominate the conversation and you're throwing in insults and stuff like that. It's uncalled for what you just said. All right. So just
That I think the moderation's not good.
just conduct the conversation more civilly. All right.
Okay.
Stop trying to
It's-
dominate.
You broke his heart.
Dip. I think the question's pretty simple. If you're not able to answer it, then I'll leave it.
Well, hold on. I think there's two questions on the table. One of them is that SE is saying that there is no measure. I'm assuming, okay, maybe we should ask him exactly what he means. SE, are you talking about measurements of hump or drop? Because that's the thing. Like, is that what you're
Yeah,
asking
of course.
for?
Yeah. According to their model, right, the water drops immediate from your feet all around, indisputable. And also, according to their model, and he admitted it, if you get two boats and you start going backwards, there's going to be a hump in between. He also admitted that both boats will see a drop. And I told him, so you're saying that the two drops will become a hump? And he said, yes. And I think that's just ridiculous.
So is that pretty close to what I just said SE's argument is? Doesn't it seem that it's a reasonable thing to say? How could you? I'm saying yes. By being on the top of a thing that everything drops away from, you will both be on the top and there'll be a hump. From both observers, both will see the same thing.
Mhm.
And a drop. And a drop, right?
Yep.
And a drop.
I'm asking a really simple question. How could you have one but not the other?
And I'm telling you, the answer to this is for the third time. I'm not saying that you have one or the other. I'm saying water is level. I'm trying to show the absurdity of your belief, sir.
I'm not. I don't mean in the
Riding.
flat
I think the point is
model.
We don't have
asking
either.
about what in the flat Earth model would you have humps and drops. I mean, in terms of basic geometry, you seem like you're saying your model is silly because it gets this geometry wrong that that the water's dropping immediately at your feet and there's going to be a hump. How could you have a drop and a hump? And I'm saying just in geometry, accepting the ball Earth model, how could you have one but not the other?
You can have whatever you want. You can have any model you want. I don't believe in your globe.
Right,
so
but you're not
I don't use that fantasy. I don't have the globe filter. I think in reality. And for me, water is level, sir. That's it. Simple.
I thought geometry was reality, regardless if it's a globe.
Absolutely, yes. Geometry is the closest thing we have to reality so far, and as far as explaining where we are, yeah.
The measuring of Earth.
Yeah, exactly the measuring of Earth, simply put. Yeah.
Starts with a baseline of horizontal and vertical. Plumb line and water, basically.
I'm a little bit annoyed here because it sounds like SE is refusing to understand or refusing to answer Eggshell's question.
Yeah,
and I don't know why he's doing that.
Do you have wax in your ears, Bob? I answered it 3 times. Which part are you confused on, Bob?
You said words. I'm not saying you didn't respond to his question. You said words in language, and I understood the words. What I'm saying is you don't seem to be actually directing. You don't seem to be referring to his question when you say the words.
Fair enough.
Just seem to be saying words.
Fair enough. Bob, restate riding on Eggshell's question to SE.
Okay. If you have a hump, how do you not have a drop? If you have a drop, how do you not have a hump? You can start with either one. If you have either one, no matter what scenario you're in, if you have one, is there any possible way to not automatically have the other?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
If you have a hump, you automatically have a drop. Obviously, I mean, that's child's play.
But if you have a drop, you don't automatically have a hump. If it's like
That's what his question
a cliff,
was, as far as
like
I
a
know, and
sheer wall or
never
something like that,
asked
you're not going to have a
answer
hump.
like that.
You mean
Yeah,
if it's,
so
Yeah,
was
or if
that
the drop
sufficient enough for
purely
you, Bob?
optical.
if it's a slope, you mean percentage?
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
swinging
if it's
on
a
a triangle.
slope,
but okay,
if it's
yeah,
a cliff face, you could have drop without hump. They're not.
Yeah, like
but they're
Niagara
not mutually
Falls, right? You
exclusive.
have
You can
Niagara
both.
Falls. Niagara
Yeah, of
Falls, the
course.
water is dropping, right? Where's the hump there?
There's none. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. Is that clear enough for you, Bob?
That doesn't
Now
mean that
you
they
answered
have to be
the
mutually
question. I don't know
exclusive.
why you didn't just say
Exactly.
that the first time.
He did say it
Because he
like
was
3 or
trying
4
to turn
times.
around the question to me to make me answer, and I never said that. I told him I believe it's level. He's trying to play word games. You guys are maybe not sharp enough to catch him.
There is a hump on the waterfall if you draw it out.
As much as
Same
I agree
context as
with
the
you, he
globe.
probably does try to
I'm
play
talking
word
about
games.
that.
This
Sorry, I
particular
wasn't
time,
talking.
it didn't seem like it.
Yeah, well,
Go ahead, John.
congratulations. You got your answer though, right?
Yeah, he answered it this time. Yes.
Yeah, I heard it. I mean, I heard him say it a couple times, but maybe in different ways. And then he expressed explicitly that he doesn't believe there's either, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah, I've been trying to make clear I'm not asking about in SE's model. I'm just asking in his critique of this one. I think Bob understands exactly what I'm saying.
And then real
So
quick,
was my
Gary-
answer sufficient enough for you,
The
Derek
last
Schultz?
one was, yeah, last one finally seemed like an answer.
Okay, so now how do you square the circle now? You have both a hump and 2 drops. How does that work in your brain?
For exactly the same, with exactly the same logic that you just answered Bob's question, which is, he said, how could you have one without the other? And you said you couldn't. That's how I'd answer it, with your words. You couldn't have one without the other. If we live on a curved surface, I'll take percentage's point. If we lived on something that was had sharp edges, like on a triangle, then you could have somebody who looked down at another person, but there was no curve in the middle. That if
We do live on that. You ever seen a mountain or a cliff? He gave you an example of a waterfall. We do live on that.
Sure, but SE's example specifically asked about boats, didn't it? Not about a cliff, did it?
Well, a boat observer doesn't matter either.
Right.
Exactly. So exactly, my answer to your question, SE, is your words. You couldn't have one without the other.
Yeah, so what? So
yeah,
what?
if we're doing a criticism
Still-
of the globe model, then it's consistent. It's sensible to say that the 2 drops from 2 different observers equals a hump. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, percentage.
You're kidding me, right?
Wow, that's
Percentage?
wild.
I'm not kidding. No, if you're
You're
doing an
actually-
internal criticism of their model, it's geometrically sound.
Yeah.
How so?
That's-
You
and that's what I
show
was
me
saying-
where
saying
2
before, it
boats
was an
see a
external
drop.
critique.
Hold
I'm
on.
not saying it's real. I'm saying if you're taking their model and you're just sussing out whether what they're saying is sensible or not, internally, it's consistent.
No, it's not. Even on their model. Let's take their model. We have a ball, right? You show me where there's both drop and hump between 2 boats. Go ahead.
Well, we just drew it.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know what else to say.
Maybe you're misunderstanding, Essie. He's not saying it's consistent with observation or consistent with reality. He's saying it's consistent with itself.
No, it is not. It is not consistent with itself. Negative. There's no way, no place on this universe where you can make water both drop and hump between
But
2
we're not
people
talking about
and
water.
create
We're
a
talking
hump.
about a
Come on,
geometry.
dude.
This is geometry, not water.
And the point that percentage raises, I think, is kind of important because it's a useful tool for anybody, and that is if you want to critique or test somebody's worldview, you need to do an internal critique. You need to accept all of the tenets of it and then show how it's inconsistent internally, rather than going, because I don't think there's curvature, I find this hump and drop ridiculous. It's like,
So you
if
think-
the Earth was curving and there was both hump and drop, what would I expect to see?
So you think water does hump and drop?
We're not talking
I
about
don't
water.
think-
We're talking
I
about
think these are
geometry.
Excuse me. I asked writing on eggshells. So
I think
in your worldview, water humps and drops.
I think they're really crude terms to explain it. I think it curves and conforms to the forces acting upon it. I think it curves, yes.
Which creates a hump and a drop, right?
That's what I'm saying. Are there crude terms? I would happily use them if somebody else was, as I have been now, but I think they're crude terms.
It was the whole conversation.
I don't think the terms are crude. You just have to specify locality. So it'd be a hump in the middle.
Yeah,
and
in a
drop
boat. In a
observer.
boat, if your boats are facing each other and they back away, would the hump be created in the middle? That was the whole conversation.
Yeah, I know. I'm happy with that. Yeah, I think it does. I think that for any point locally, if I were to hold a plumb bob and go level from that, every bit of earth is or water is curving downwards from that local level. Yes. Do I think that
creating a hump in the middle?
Do I think that creates a hump off in the distance? Yes. It's necessary.
Okay, then the next question
I would have the first one without the second one.
Okay, then the next question I would have, writing, do you have any evidence whatsoever that there's any humps or drops anywhere in reality on Earth?
I think here's the crux. Pontchartrain video photo is pretty good. I think there's some other ones that are pretty good.
Okay,
but honestly,
so you're saying that that's a hump and a drop. Is that what you're saying?
I think it shows curvature of water. Yeah,
it looks more humpy to me. It looks more humpy than droppy. What do you think?
If you're in the middle of it, would you say it was dropping away in either direction? Possibly.
It looks like a mirage to me, created by the conditions.
Exactly.
Yeah, and Rocky, you said that it's different at different angles. Is that what you were saying?
It's different at different angles. It's different on different days.
Yeah.
One day it was curved towards me. 6 days later, I went and it was straight as an arrow.
Wow.
Sure.
Yeah.
You guys didn't listen to the rest of his answer. He started off and he said, "But honestly," and then you guys cut him off.
Yeah.
You're gonna finish writing?
No, if I finish, I get muted.
You're talking about like Pontchartrain, yeah, you can consider it like that, but honestly, I think you were going to say something more, like maybe, an optical isn't reliable or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. The same thing I always say about it. I don't think that observations over water at a distance are a very good way to determine this. There's too much noise in it.
Yet you use that as your number one proof.
You just said it showed curving water.
I said I think it shows curving water, but I don't think it's my number one proof. I don't remember saying that.
He asked you specifically, what was your? He asked you specifically. Geo did, I think. What's your number one go-to of this evidence that you're saying that water humps and drops? And you said Lake Pontchartrain.
Well, sure. If I'm asked for my number one, I think sextants. Sextants are a really good way to show it.
Oh, okay.
Can we draw another?
You're done.
To be fair, Geo didn't say number one. Geo just said any.
Yeah, I was asking if there was any actual evidence or verification on any way, shape, or form of any hump or drop over distance, over water or land existing.
And what was his first response?
Yes.
He said the picture of Lake Pontchartrain.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And a waterfall.
I do think it's good evidence.
Keep in mind, any is different than number one, guys.
Yeah, okay. Fight for him again. That's the third time. So
he also
give us
asked
your
for it
definition
for
of
a
any.
thing.
I feel for poor Bob. Sorry,
I
Bob.
did too. Because he has to defend you.
No, Bob's being the voice of reason.
I don't know what's going on tonight. It's like nobody's paying attention to the language that's being used or something. I don't know.
No, Bob, you're good. I agree with you.
Could I get writing to do another drawing? Could I get writing to do another drawing to clarify this hump?
Yeah.
This waterfall compared to that first image with the boats. Can you draw a waterfall?
Yep. Okay, so
you got the elevation of the height of the water at the top, where the water, which is just the land. Land doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And then you got a vertical drop down, straight down vertically, and then you got land at the bottom where the water's going to.
Gotcha.
Right, now draw an observer up the top. Doesn't matter if it's a boat or an observer, any sort of object will do to represent a point of view or a viewer.
Sure.
You're going too quick.
Redhead man.
Yeah, that'll do.
There we go.
And then copy and paste that and draw it down the bottom.
Sure.
After you've drawn that.
Body.
Yeah.
Green.
Move him back halfway from the edge to the edges.
Okay.
Yeah, and now put him down the bottom about halfway there. Yep. Now this could be boats. This could be the observer. It doesn't matter. Either.
Absolutely, I'm with you.
Right. Now on a globe, you're drawing. You said you drew a line. Is that a chord line between their feet? If you draw a line like on a globe, like on a circle, Remember the thing? Yeah. Well, that's like on a circle when if you have the word chord line? I'm not sure of the
Chord line,
terminology.
yeah, sort of slices
Right.
through a
Right.
like
Now
chopping off the
you
top
can
of
imagine
something.
the globe between the two observers now, can't you? Like if that was a circle drawn right between their feet. Right. Okay. Can you see where the hump is? If you compare the two together,
You're
the
kidding,
circle
right?
and the
Harry?
waterfall. There
I
you
just
go.
screenshotted this.
Who's on top
There you
and
go.
who's on the bottom here? Who's up? Who's
Doesn't
looking up?
matter.
Who's looking
Doesn't
down?
matter.
There's a
We're
drop.
just drawing an orthographic view representing.
All right, now put the guy on the edge.
Yeah, put him on the
And
edge.
then
There's
show
no
us-
hump.
show us the hump.
Most ridiculous
Oh,
thing
man,
I ever
tell him
heard.
to
Screenshot
walk.
this shit.
Jesus, man.
That's pretty good.
Well, put the two. Well, same as the circle. Put the two observers closer together.
Yeah, you're
Exactly.
kidding me, right?
Sure, yeah. Put
You
each
got-
one
you
on
gotta
the
be
edge, and
joking,
you'll see where the
Terry.
hump is.
I hope
Yeah.
this isn't the level we've.
So where's the
gotten
drop?
to.
Okay, Terry, the guy on the bottom, where's the drop for him?
When he's looking back at the other observer. Well, this is not representing drop. This is representing the hump that they have in
You
between.
can't have a hump without a drop, sir. Y'all
Yes.
came to that
As
conclusion.
established by eggshells very thoroughly
see.
before.
And that's why I was correcting.
I'm
Eggshells when
screenshotting
you were
this right
saying
now.
that.
We
You can
got
have
a
a drop
problem
without
here.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
this is
screenshot
just
On the
this.
Barbie today.
This is
Well,
this is a way you could get a drop without hump, but I was only saying.
I know.
was already thinking
I'm just trying to break the argumentative tone of the.
Now the question is, can you have
This is
a
cool.
hump without drop?
Ah.
So now look at this picture. Now, does
think
that
so,
make
yeah,
sense to
easily.
anybody?
I'll make you a hump without drop.
No. Why you?
What happened to
why
that
change it?
beautiful drawing?
It's still there. Easy. Here's a hump without drop.
What the?
No, there's drop from each sides of the apex.
Of course there is. Yeah.
Right, but there's not drop for either observer.
Let him go. Let him go.
There's no
Yeah,
drop on the circle.
Screenshot.
So there's a hump with a drop that's only for one person, and there's a hump with no drop.
Wait.
What? What do you mean? How is there a hump without a drop on this one?
Plus, you
Because
got
they're
him
both
in,
at the same
you got him in
elevation.
the air. You got
Yeah,
him in
you
the
got 'em
air too. Put him on something.
They're floating.
That looks like an obstruction. I mean, that's not,
Screenshot.
that has nothing to do with a geometrical sphere. That's just an obstruction over a level surface.
Exactly. I'm not presenting any of these as the sphere.
So that would be a hump.
Before you added,
a
They're
hump
not
on
analogous.
like my idea of a hump on a planar Earth essentially would be that you're at, let's say, sea level. You're at, and then if you had like a mountain, then it humps up, at higher elevation than sea level, and then it humps back down. So
Screenshot.
you can have a hump on a plane, but you're not going to have any drops. The only drops you would have would be elevation, but you're not going to have any curvature drops away from you.
yo,
She
right.
was on the ball.
Undo,
so to speak.
undo, and just leave it on the heads alone.
Has he got a
Okay.
backpack on?
Just for a second.
No, that gives them arms.
Oh.
All right, now
Some
guys, look at
blocky
the
ass
entire
arms.
thing. Look at the total thing. Doesn't that look like an albino koala with a green nose?
Oh, I see it. It's like I'm playing Atari.
This is
Right now he's
getting
gonna draw.
Picasso-ish.
Oh yeah, screenshot. Yay!
Yeah, there's the koala.
Artiste.
Oh, that's a koala, man. Yeah.
That's a drop bear.
I bet he
tell with
knows
the
it's
red
not a
eyes.
globe. I bet he knows water doesn't curve.
Oh, yeah.
He
Terry knows his score.
doesn't like water. He's always in a tree.
Yeah.
It's at the bottom.
That 90
It's
foot.
always at the bottom.
Yeah.
Terry's
All right,
hanging
go ahead,
around
pull
with
out the
blue
picture.
too much, though. That's
Me hanging around blue. Oh yeah, sorry about that.
Hey, Riding, when the birds fly south, do they have to account for Coriolis?
ah.
I mean, what do you mean by account for?
Well, it depends if they stop at McDonald's along the way.
What do you think, Terry?
If they stop at McDonald's, then they have to get their bearings again, don't they?
Well, for real, I mean, what my understanding with birds, they actually have a magnetic material in their skull.
Yeah.
And
that too, actually. That's cool.
they tune in to the electromagnetic field of the Earth, and they actually fly along these ley lines, along the electromagnetic ley lines.
Well, that'd be just like a compass, basically.
Bees too, hey?
Going north to south.
Yep. You know what the most remarkable creature that does that?
The bee.
A monarch butterfly. it flies thousands of miles, and it weighs like what? Not even an ounce. The thing.
Really, SC? Damn.
Yeah. Every year, yeah.
There's also some cool thing somebody showed a few months back on I think swan migrations or something, and they go due north, like really perfectly north, and then they get to somewhere near Africa and do this weird loop. It's like they're just like, oh fuck, Nigeria or something. I forget which country it is, but they do this weird leg around it and then keep going
It
straight
don't prove
north.
a globe, does it?
I think whales
No,
and
it doesn't do
tuna and
anything about a
stuff do
globe.
this
It's just
sort of
interesting. It's just
Alright.
animal behavior.
Oh.
Yeah,
I think
honeybees do
fish-
something similar as well. They have like a little kind of hollow chamber near their like their larynx or something like that, and then they just like resonate and they fly straight, absolutely straight when they're going and collecting like the nectar or what have you.
What were you saying, Rakia?
I think it would apply to the aquatics too, like whales and tuna that travel great distances. That their brains are so small. There's no way they remember or have this whatever. I think they use some type of magnetic, tracking.
Rakia, your buddy's here too.
That's very interesting. Yeah, because imagine being a whale and traveling thousands of miles in the ocean. Like, how would you even know where you are? That would be unbelievable. So yeah,
Why do they travel? Just to get to warmer waters, or what?
Well, they take the same routes every year to mate and do certain things.
I thought it was to do with mating and stuff.
Tuna do the same thing.
It's not a tuna.
A tuna.
that is interesting. Yeah. Could it be could that have to do with the electromagnetic fields in the ocean that they're tracking with?
I mean, that's what I would think. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It has to have something. I mean, they call it a compass, right? That's pointing towards the whatever. I don't even know the story anymore. It used to be magnetic north. Now it's the center of the earth. But like, I think it's just, it has to do with the field created.
Let's see.
Resonance, frequency, magnetism, it all comes together. We live in a dynamic system, so why wouldn't that come together?
And we understand so little of it.
Yeah, we're not even, we're fighting about nothing, right?
Haven't even scratched the surface.
Yeah. I don't like fighting. I'm a pacifist.
I just don't like the fact, like the smart people, I'll use that term loosely,
Yeah, I would.
tell us they can measure centimeters of the Earth movement from the moon, but can't measure the drop over water over 1 mile. I don't buy that.
They can't measure anything from the moon. They've never been there.
You understand what I'm saying, though? They give us
Yeah.
all these millimeter accuracy, centimeter accuracy to the moon, this, that, and the other. It's moving this much a year, and this star's moving. This star is 1 trillion light years away, but we know it's moving this many times, every 18,000, whatever. But you can't show me drop from horizontal over 1 mile? No thanks. I'll pass on what else you're trying to tell me.
Yep, water does them in.
They're just
Well, if we
hand waved away,
can't
right?
tell you anything, that's going to limit the conversation.
No, it's water. You cannot disagree with water. You can say whatever you want. You can point in the sky and give us stories about how we're traveling at 1.5 million miles an hour. We don't feel it. Constant velocity. Blah, blah. You can do that all day long. Gravity. But when it comes to water, an everyday experience for everybody, I mean, it's over for you. There's no way out.
And isn't it amazing that water is mysterious, right? It has the 3 phases, and
We can show you things like.
Hold on, Mel. Go back here.
I didn't talk.
Yeah,
I don't think it wasn't Merle.
Oh,
It wasn't Merle.
Mel.
You were lighting up, that's all, Mel. That's why I said you.
I'm joking, Mel.
Well, I was just saying how mysterious water is, even in the 3 phases. What about all the in-between phases? You start studying hydrostatics and how water cavitates at 33 feet up in the atmosphere, and the phases that it must be going through to do all the things that it does. Water is a crazy element, right? Like the baseline of everything, I think. And I come from the biblical side, and when I research the Bible, it's never told me where water was created. It always existed. I think that's the baseline.
I
So
thought
that's why
water was. Sorry, I thought water was the first creation, the very first
not
thing God created.
not to my knowledge. So if you can find that, I'll listen to you. But it seems to have always been here. But it's it's 777. 77% of this and 77% of that. Water is in everything. I think it's the key to life.
Okay, well, in the Islamic perspective is that water is the very first creation. I thought it was the same in terms of the Bible.
If I'm
Yeah,
being
Because in Genesis, God looked upon the face of the deep, and He created the dry land so He's looking down upon the water, right? And He
Yeah.
separated the waters from the waters below, right? The waters above
With
from
the
the waters
firmament.
below.
Yeah, so it already.
Right in
So it
Genesis.
means it was created
First chapter.
before anything else, right?
Well, I
Yep, the
think it was
water
the first
there.
thing created, but it doesn't
Or
say that I created.
Because if you say
day
it's
one.
eternal, then it gets
He
kind of
looked
dicey.
upon it. There was void and without form. He looked upon the face of the deep. So it
Mhm.
was there. He looked
It was
upon
already
it.
there.
Yeah, but it's a
Right.
creation, right? It's not
He also
God.
made it, right?
Well,
God
of course,
created it
the
all.
creator created it, but
Right,
what I'm
right.
saying, then
It
he
was his
separated
blank slate. That was his
separated it
blank
with
slate.
the firmament. That's why I think we're in a
Right.
bubble. We're in like a bubble. There's waters above and waters below.
maybe not.
how
We're
could you
in
have
the
created
reverse.
water how could you have created water first if there's nowhere for the water to be placed in?
Who
You're
said there
God.
isn't?
You're not constrained
Obviously, it's
by
contained.
water
Water's
needing
contained in
container.
something.
What's that? So what? The water's just in space, in nowhere, in nothing.
I
Space is
think
space, dude.
Have you
Space is
seen
space.
the vomit comet 0G? What happens to water?
No, I don't concern myself with such retarded things.
Okay, well, you can deny it as much as you want, but it exists.
I'm not denying it. It's just if you haven't got a container for your water, like what have you got?
Well, I think water
Ideas?
in all its
You've got a
phases.
Bible. You've got a Bible. I don't need a Bible. I don't need your ideas. What else you got? Got any proof?
No
Bro,
one's saying the Bible is
hold
proving
up.
flat
Let me just
Earth.
say this
It's
quickly.
just
You're trying
You got
to impose the natural law onto God who created the natural law. Does that make sense to you?
So do you think
Not really.
that God created
Just a human saying what
water
those
without a
numbers.
container to put it in? You think he did that first?
Yeah. God created water first.
Okay.
What if a
God
different
created the
phase?
laws. He's not bound by them.
What if a different phase of water? You're thinking too simple, like the water we drink. What if a different phase of water is the medium, right? And the water
think
that we
that
drink in
water-
our oceans and rivers is a different type of
It's
water.
a good point. God could have created ice.
Super
The water could have
fluid.
been frozen. It doesn't need a container
Did
then,
you
does it?
know
Exactly.
there's different pools of water. If you go deep in the ocean, there's these different pools with different densities. So it might have been like
Absolutely.
that. It could have been
Yeah,
that other water you're talking about.
regardless
Maybe
of
Maybe
what
not.
sort of water it is and what state it's in, it would still have to have some sort of containment for that to be in, wouldn't it?
Of course, yes. But I
Isn't
mean,
there a
that's
chance you'll
beyond our
get stuck in
recognition. I
Yeah.
mean, how could a
Isn't
mere
there?
mortal know how
Hold on.
God works? I mean, you're asking
No,
a you.
I don't claim to know how he works, Ron, at all. I'm just trying to think through it logically. Like if something
I mean,
was created,
God,
right?
He told
Yeah.
us. He said, "Where were you when I created the earth? Did you stretch a line across it? How do you know the boundaries?" We'll never know this. We're not God. You know what I mean?
No,
We
I
can't
know.
answer
Yeah, I
that.
realise
What
that.
was
Yeah, I
God
realise that.
thinking? Yeah, what was God thinking that day?
Bandy, aren't you going to get stuck in an infinite regression though? Because if you'd say the water needs something to put in, then you'd say, well, what's that on? Right.
What do you
As
mean?
Who
much as
created
water,
God,
as
right?
much as water,
What's that container on? It's on a
yeah,
shelf.
as much.
It's on a shelf in a warehouse. I don't know
Right.
what
That's
it's
what I.
on.
That's what I
Yeah,
mean
no,
though.
I get your thing, but I'm just obviously I'm just trying to think through it logically, right?
Yeah.
Now I get the creator is the creator of all, and he can do it in whatever order that he wants to do it in. But like if I'm the creator myself, I'm just thinking if I was the creator, now no matter what form that water is going to be in, right? I would want something to put it in, personally, I reckon. And
Well, the infinite
before I
regression.
make
You're
it.
thinking like a human.
The infinite
There's
regression adds
questions
for
we
the.
can't answer. We can't answer who created
No.
God, right? Where did
You
how
can't
did
not
no, we
think like a
can't
human.
answer.
That's the best thing, though. None of you
Yeah.
cannot think like humans.
That's right, Mel.
Try to
That's right.
try to not think like a human.
Well, the infinite regression ends for the water because the water bottoms out in needing to be contained in something else. Now, if you're going to try to extend the infinite regression to what is that other thing contained in, that's not necessary. We only need to talk about the water needing containment. That's it. We don't need to go past what is containing the container of the water. We don't necessarily need to do that.
So you've said you don't need to do that. Could you explain why you do need to do the first step and not the second?
Well, at that point, you're asking what created everything, or contains everything, and I guess that would bottom out at God. It would need to bottom out somewhere, and all we really need to focus on is the water. The water appears to need a container. That's it.
I can
So
explain
slightly
why.
different. We're not asking what created everything, but what order it was created in.
It wouldn't be necessarily fruitful to concern yourself with whatever contains the water. The water is the thing that we identify, and we identify that as far as our experience is concerned, it needs a container. The thing that would contain the container would be outside of our realm of knowledge. We have no touch point for even considering what the rules are outside of our experience. So we would be attempting to imagine up rules that are entirely outside of the reality that we experience. So it's not necessarily fruitful to try and imagine those rules. We would only need to concern ourselves with the things we actually know about.
Well, didn't God also to
Agreed.
make us in his image and his being too? That's kind of said as well.
Well, I mean, if you're asking what contained this, what contained this, what contained this, you would get an infinite regression. So it's got to bottom out somewhere. And the way that we bottom out these sorts of discussions and stop them from just going, crazy, is stopping at faith or just something that, is the final stop like God. So we'd have to appeal to something like that because otherwise the discussion just never ends or it never goes anywhere.
Here's a question.
Well, like the discussion of is level, Lemon, like that keeps on going on forever and ever too. So it's the same sort of discussion.
Well, you
Here's a
have
question.
axioms that you have to accept off of faith. Like level is flat and level. That would be an axiom more or less accepted off of faith. Otherwise, if level is curving, well, then what's the straight standard that you compared level to? It just becomes crazy.
Here's a question to wrap your heads around. Is absolute nothingness a low pressure environment?
Absolute nothingness. I don't think absolute nothingness can exist. I
Say
think
it does.
yeah.
Say hypothetically it does.
I would say
Would it be a low pressure environment?
I would say it'd be no pressure.
Yeah, there'd be nothing to press.
Would entropy function? Like, would you have high to that no pressure? Is my point.
There would have to be something to expand into, something to move into. There would have to be something there like an ether. Like the Epicurean vacuum of the ancients, that was an absolute void. Nothing is illogical. They say that space is like an infinite void. You can't have a void that's infinite. You need to have positive something that's infinite.
Why can't you have an infinite void?
Nothing. Because there's nothing there to be infinite. That's a contradiction in terms. Like Southern Israelite was
absolute
saying,
nothingness
you can't
as
have
far
an infinite void. That's a contradiction.
How's that a contradiction?
Because a void is nothing. An infinite implies an infinite amount of something positive.
Yeah,
Constantly
not
generated
necessarily.
amount
You
of
can have
something.
nothingness. Why not?
I mean, otherwise, what is infinite? You can have infinite numbers because numbers exist. You don't just put a blank where the numbers are and say infinite, blank. That's what you're saying with an infinite void. There's nothing there for infinity to exist. That's just illogical. There has to be something there.
Not necessarily. Let's say you have metaphysically, let's say you have God, right? And before he created anything, there's just absolute nothingness. Nothingness in and of itself is infinite, right? So it's redundant. You could say it's redundant, but it's definitely not contradiction in terms.
But you're saying something existed. That's contradictory. You're saying that nothing existed. How is there something there?
No, we're not saying
if there's
existed.
nothing? That doesn't make any sense.
You don't necessarily have to say it existed as in it came, like something came from not being to being. It's nothingness, right? and it's eternal nothingness or infinite nothingness. It's not a contradiction in terms.
Well,
But I guess what I was asking, hold on, let me just go back to my question. So to draw a comparison, let's say you have an isolated system, right? And inside you have pockets of absolute nothingness. There, I would agree that, you know, the second law of thermodynamics, entropy, high to low would take effect, and, you know, you would have gas evacuating into that nothingness and, you know, trying to find equilibrium. But if you don't even have, you know, the container that makes the isolated system, if you don't even have the system, all you have is absolute nothingness. Do you have that second law of thermodynamics? What would happen to gas in that state?
it would have nothing to expand into. There would be nothing there. Usually something can act on something else. Nothing doesn't generate anything. Nothing comes from nothing. And nothing, you know, doesn't do anything. You need something to do something.
No, let's say we had this infinite nothingness, and now you had gas, right? You put gas in this infinite nothingness. What happens?
There'd be nothing to exist in. There'd be nothing to move into. The gas would be looking for a place to move into, and there'd be nothing there. So I guess nothing would happen.
I don't know.
But the way that the people on the physics side try to deal with this is they try to deal with space as infinite potential. It's something that exists, but has the potential to transmute into anything that you need. So they don't think of it necessarily as nothing. They think of it as infinite potential, the potential to be anything, if, you know, put under the right conditions.
Yeah, I think the gas might infinitely go outwards.
Well, if you introduce gas into nothingness, that gas has an energy, so it's going to have work, so it will do something in that nothingness.
Well, there'd be nothing to act on. That's why people say space needs to be something that exists, like an ether, quantum fluid, quantum field, or whatever. It has to be something that you can act on.
You've created something for it to act on, itself.
The question is, what is nothing?
How can something act on itself, though? I don't understand that.
Nothing is the absence of anything.
If I tried to act on myself by, like, say, eating myself or consuming my own body, eventually I would just break down and I would lose the form in which I'd be able to do anything. If I ate my hand enough or my arm or my leg enough, pretty soon I'm not going to be able to do or eat anything. If I ate my own stomach, I wouldn't even be able to eat anything because that thing is no longer around to process or do anything. So after a while, if something just acts on itself, how can it maintain a form with that sort of framework? That doesn't quite make sense.
Or energy can't be created nor destroyed. It's always there. So that gas has got energy attached to it. So you're putting that energy into nothingness. So it's not going to destroy itself. It'll still retain the same amount of energy. And
What
do
is
it
nothing?
does.
You guys are talking nonsense. What is nothing?
Well,
I told you. I answered it with absence of anything.
That doesn't mean nothing. You're trying to put something into nothing. What is nothing?
What? Absence of anything.
Do you mean a vacuum, like in the sense of what they think of as a vacuum?
No, absolute nothingness, void of all creation.
Yeah, but how can you imagine such a thing? What is that?
You can only imagine such a thing.
What would we imagine, though? What would it look like? What would its color be? How big would it be? How far would it extend? What would it do?
All nonsensical questions.
All nonsense. Let me put it to you this way. Your brain, right? If it was a computer, right? It doesn't have enough power to answer the questions that you can't even ask those questions. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because you can't answer them. They're like, I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Let's go back to Humps.
I think you're saying that us as humans, we have like a very, very small bit of knowledge of like everything, and we can't even fathom what the true questions and answers are because of that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's beyond our human
What is the last number? Here, I'll give you an example. What is the last number?
A really big one.
See, our brain, it doesn't have enough RAM or whatever you want to call it to compute that, right? no
There is no last
supercomputer
number.
will ever answer that question, right?
Yeah, because there is no last number. They just keep going.
Exactly. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. These questions that you're asking are unanswerable. Those are, the God questions and the creation questions, and
They're unanswerable because for us to figure out what, if anything, nothing is, there would have to be something there for us to discover. And so that is a contradiction, because if there's something there for us to discover what nothing is, then nothing wouldn't be nothing anymore. So it becomes illogical at that point. It defies our ability to explore it if we're going to change the definition midstream like that. So as
it's
far as
like
we
that
can tell,
computer
nothing.
that starts smoking, in the, what's that movie called there? When they ask it a question and it just, you can't do it.
I mean, for us to discover the truth, there has to be something there to discover. And if there's something there in nothing for us to discover, well, then how can it be nothing? That doesn't make sense.
Well, I already know
Lemon,
what
you just
the
keep on
answer
talking,
is.
but all I hear you saying is nothing.
The answer is 42.
There it is. Bob has it.
Well, ultimately, if we're trying to discover the truth, we need a framework that allows us to think and discover that the truth is so. You're destroying the mind and destroying the framework itself if out of one side of your mouth you're saying there's nothing there, but out the other side you're saying there's something there to discover. I mean, that's contradictory.
Look,
Yeah,
from
no
the
one's saying
beginning
that
of
nothingness
time,
exists. It's just like a brain teaser.
no, from the beginning of time, people have been asking these questions, right? What is time? What is nothing? It's
is
just
love?
not answerable. Then you have the scientists that say, "Oh, yeah, of course we know. It was the Big Bang. Yeah. Evolution. You started from, from nothing, from chemicals,
Abiogenesis.
and yeah."
Well, there's no
Well,
such thing as nothing, right? Love is life, and time are the moments you get to spend while you exist.
You just said there's no such thing as nothing,
There is no such
meaning
thing as.
there's nothing like nothing. So there's nothing.
Well, it's a
Got it.
human concept, but
Checkmate.
when have you ever seen nothing? What reference? If I look up in the dictionary right now, nothing, what's going to be the definition, and what's the object?
Don't know. Let's check it out.
I think we
Just
kind of
actually for that one
infer.
have the word and then no definition to make the point clear.
You got
I
the
think,
word
That'd be good,
and match
actually.
it to something.
Actually,
I'm
well, we
curious what
infer.
it says.
nothing comes up,
Nothing.
Mel. Nothing comes up.
Nothing. No super.
Well, we infer
That's
that nothing
beautiful.
is there, but there's not technically nothing there. There's air there, bacteria there, dust there, but there's nothing in the jar. If
Where?
that we're focusing on coins isn't in the jar. So in a way, when we're saying there's nothing there, we're saying that we expect something to be here, but it's not, or something like that.
Well, yeah, in that confined space, right? You can say in the jar, there's no more coins, right? But can you say there's nothing in that empty jar?
Good question.
Not
There's
truly.
dust, bacteria, maybe a bug or something, or something.
I would say the globe earthers have nothing to prove it's a globe.
I would agree with you on that.
In a way, we're saying something should be here, but something that should be here is not. Like if you go to the bank account, there's no money in there. You're like, there should be some money in here, but there's no money in there. There might be
Yeah,
some
nothing
dust
means
or an
devoid.
IOU.
It's empty. It's just empty. It's devoid of anything.
So I guess what we should ask ourselves is what should space be filled with? If we're saying that there's no money in the jar and there should be money in there, what should space be filled with if it's quote unquote empty?
It's
Well,
a
they
void
try
in
to
a
tell you that
vacuum,
it's
right?
empty.
That's what they tell us. Space is a vacuum. It's a void. So it's
Yes.
nonsense. You can't have a void with a pressurized system or a gas giant. It's just like their whole ideas. They have this conundrum. Like they contradict themselves on all these things.
Well, it's contradictory to say, that a thing is being what it is, and out the other side of your mouth say that it's not being what it should be. if you're saying that, space is nothing and it should be nothing, but out the other side of our mouths, we're saying it's empty as if something should be here but isn't here, like an object or something like that. That may be a little contradictory. If space is a nothing, should there be anything in space at all based off of, a definition like that?
Yeah, it
Is
should
it
just be a
really
void.
empty?
Keep in mind, these are thoughts not of your own. These are stuff given to you by other people, right? They tell you there's
It's
a
all
vacuum there, and next to air, like Lemon said. So
But we're saying that space should be filled with something. Filled with what? Particles, waves, people, buildings. What should space be filled with?
well, it's not what it should be filled with. Is well, the best we can do is look out, right,
Space jizz.
and see what we see. Yeah. So far, when we look out, we see lights there. That's all we can go by. We see something, the moon. It looks solid. It looks like a rock. Some people say it is. It isn't. We can only go by what we have.
For those that believe that there's a dome, what pressure do you think is like right at that surface of the dome, right underneath the dome?
Good question.
Probably like 10 to the negative 14th or something. I don't know.
They can't answer that.
I mean, 10 to
God
the
can
negative
answer it.
14.
I mean, you're asking us to answer God's question, so that's
What do you think?
some things can't
Speculate.
be answered.
Well,
You
it
can
depends on
speculate.
what's pressing against it. I mean, if space is a fluid substance or an ether, like I think, that passes in and out of objects, I think some of the ether may press against it, some of it may pass right through it. If the substance of space itself in the vacuum is, this fluid that can flow in and out of objects, there may be some pressure there, or relatively little, at all. If it's
You know
also
what?
hitting the container and or passing through it.
It could be like a magnetic field like this. Like some people, some people say we're on the plane between these two fields, right? We have a north on top and then the south is underneath it, and we live on this plane. And that may be true because when they tried to drill the Kola super deep borehole, they may have been trying to penetrate that plane in between the two toroidal fields, right? And it might be impenetrable, something that just can't be drilled through at the 7.5
It
miles
is
depth.
impenetrable. Funny you
Yeah,
should
well, of
mention that.
course.
Yeah.
Of course, but we don't know why it's impenetrable. I mean, it might be this because of this. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to say. Like, I can't answer God's design. Like, it's folly to say
Yeah. As
man
far
can
as
answer
we
God's
agree
question.
that we're speculating, right, and we're not
Yeah.
Oh,
shoving.
absolutely.
Yeah. Then the conversation is great. Yeah.
Lemon, you said something a few minutes ago. You said if there was no system, when I asked you about like the gas in like absolute nothingness, you said if there was no system, the gas could just stay where it is. Doesn't it could be that it doesn't go anywhere, right? Nothing happens.
Mhm.
So my question to you is, if we don't have a dome, if there's no top, right, and it's not necessarily a system because there's just like infinite nothingness above, why would the gas need to go anywhere?
Well, we appear to have some sort of solid structure by sundogs and parhelions. So as far as I can tell, it's pretty solid.
Okay, but
Light
assume
appears
that
to
we
be
don't have a ceiling.
Assume we don't have a ceiling? Well, the
Yeah.
question is, what would contain the gas? It
Well,
would just disperse into whatever medium is there, one would assume.
No, but if there's an infinite nothingness, like we were just talking about a few minutes ago, then there would be no medium for it to go into, right? There'd be no second law of thermodynamics. It could potentially just stay where it is, like you said, right?
Well, there's a
There would
void.
be,
You're
there would be
saying.
nothing to exist next to. We're saying that it's next to something as if this nothingness has some sort of boundary, some sort of ending condition. I think that might be a little contradictory because that implies that nothing as an end has an extension, has a shape or some sort of boundary.
Sounds like a delusion.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I just don't know if I believe in it, but as far as I can tell, nothing doesn't exist. I think
was
the
gonna
closest
say-
thing, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're going back to unicorn talk now, back to nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
nonsense. You
speculation.
can go
It's all,
around in
you know, we're
circles for
just
hours on that stuff.
If that's
It's
unicorn
like, where
talk,
is the
wouldn't any question about how can you have gas pressure without a container be unicorn talk?
No, because
that's
now we're talking about two things that we can get into.
So what's the difference between
Not
them?
the nothing. Okay, what's nothing?
Well, I think we're trying
I'm
to
not
figure
asking
out.
about nothing.
Well, some
I think percent's question's just fine. If we can talk about gas pressure and containment, then surely to say what gas pressure is it containing is inherently part of it. I don't understand how one could be unicorns and one could be a good question.
because you can't have
Well,
pressure.
the
You
nothing
can't
part
have.
is the unicorn
well,
part.
it's unicorns in so much that it's speculation that we can't possibly, at this point in time, verify any of it, right?
Sure,
So
both are though, right? If because the question, what you so perfectly highlight is, if when we get up high enough, the requirement is low enough. If that's so difficult to determine, it's we're just going to be speculating. Then we're just speculating in both cases. I don't think
Yeah, we are.
anybody's made
That's
a case
true.
yet for why
It
speculation.
is speculation to
I'll
say
explain
that.
you why. Because he said the word nothing. Next gas pressure, he said, next to nothing.
Yeah, but
So
it's also
nothing-
speculation to assume that the second law of thermodynamics, like the natural laws of terra firma, apply all the way up there in this place that we have absolutely no information on, right?
Exactly.
So we don't know. It's speculation either way. It's unicorns either way. We don't have any verifiable evidence for it.
We have to look at how the second law of thermodynamics in the Newtonian paradigm was formed. They thought of matter basically as these atomistic balls, these billiard balls that exchanged energy upon contact and collision. So the only way that the second law of thermodynamics with entropy could work is if there's a billiard ball for this atom to hit and spread its energy, or release its energy upon contact. If there's nothing there for this moving, gas to exchange its energy with upon collision, then theoretically it would just go out forever with the same amount of energy and just never stop. And
What if
so
it has
you would think that
density?
it would just keep on spreading infinitely with nothing to stop it.
What if this gas has like a weight to it?
It does.
Weight? I mean, people think of these atoms as things that are being pulled by gravity.
Gas has specific densities. You could have
Particle of
helium.
gas
You could
is more dense
all
than
gases have a specific density. You have oxygen, carbon dioxide, helium, hydrogen. They all have different densities, right?
Mhm.
So they all settle in. The air is a mixed gas. It's a
but
mixture
they
of
put
many
it layers.
gases. Many gases mixed together make the air. It's mostly nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, trace amounts. But within our air, it's a mixture. It's not it's not
And what
something
I
that's
think
in different layers, like a cake, like a
and what
layer
I think
cake.
of
It's
as
mixed.
And the way I think of weight is just different charge fields. Basically, you have an object that's within another medium, and depending on how it interacts with the medium, it may float, sink, or rise. So I think of weight as more of a medium interaction or a charge field interaction. I don't think of it pulling to the center of a ball body. So whatever we call weight appears to be a combination of fields that can combine to make the thing lighter, heavier, to make it float, to make it go up, go down, do a bunch of different things. I don't think of gravity as this thing pulling to the center of a ball in and of itself.
You want to know something funny too about weight, Lemon? There was an experiment this guy did with a balance. He had a balance scale with a block of wood on one side and a block of lead on the other side, and they were equally balanced. And when he pulled a vacuum, the side with the wooden block got heavier. They were equal at normal pressure, but when he evacuated the air for whatever reason, the side with the block of wood weighed more.
Mm-hmm.
I think of space as this flowing medium that's flowing into the block, or giving it more quote unquote weight. Different
You mean
objects have a different
No,
interaction.
no. Its weight was more when the air was out.
So
weighed
Wood is
more when the air
porous
was
and it
vacuumed out.
contains
Yeah.
air, so in a vacuum, it's just the density, the volume is decreased basically, so it's more dense.
So I'd say that the substance of space itself in the vacuum going around objects like you and me, the ether is in a pure form in the vacuum and just goes right into that block of wood, making it quote unquote more dense. Under different conditions, the ether would flow in and out or seep out, and quote unquote it would be lighter. That's what I would think, but I don't know.
Well, wood is buoyant in water, so a block of wood will drop through the air, but it will float on water.
Yeah, different
Yeah.
mediums, different interactions. And these mediums will change based off of how much salt is mixed with the water, how many objects are mixed with the ether, how many gases, the charge field, this etheric medium that we're all fishies in, can, vary and change depending on, I guess, what's mixed in it or whatever.
Yeah, there's some questions that only God can answer, but like as far as what you said about building pressure without a container, you need a container to get compression. Otherwise, you can't compress air. You can't compress anything without a container.
And
And
as far as we
compression
can
is what
tell,
makes pressure.
it's less unicorn to say that, unicorn like to say that we already have containers that contain gas. We're just using something that we already accept, something that we've already had experience with to explain something else in a less unicorn sort of way. It's more unicorn like to ascribe, causation where we don't normally see the power of causation to make it happen, like pointing a pen at a piece of paper and having it light on fire, when most of the time we don't see pens have that magical unicorn like power. We'd be getting into the supernatural, the paranormal, or going beyond what we normally think the range of causation for things normally is. If we can have gas pressure somehow without some sort of container, despite what we see in our everyday life and experience.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I wouldn't say it's less unicorny. I would say that it seems less unicorny because, what basically you're referring to is inference, right? We see it here, so we can infer that it's happening up there. But
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean that it is what's down here. If you were to say that, it would be affirming the consequent. And
Well-
if you're not going to say that, then you're still saying it could be a unicorn, but we're just inferring that it's less of a unicorn than what are the other option, which is like that the heavens or what have you have their own sets, their own set of natural law, or that it's something else.
That's the essence of, at least materialistic science as it's currently defined. We're using inference, kind of begging the question, yes, but we're using a body of explorable causes that we've already accepted to try to duplicate an event or say that this is what we think is happening, because we need some sort of explorable way to figure out what is the case. And we figure out what is the case from our limited experience based off of the amount of causation that we've already established. Now,
Yeah,
if we're
but that's
trying to establish something, beyond that, we're going to need faith, we're going to need revelation, or something totally different.
But yeah, that's the problem with modern science right now. They make an inference and then they pass it off as fact, right? They say this is what it is. They make a truth claim off this inference when they truly haven't confirmed or validated any of it. And then from that, they rely on other things. Like on that, they'll rely on other things, and it just becomes a house of cards. That's none of it is like actually validated.
What did Michio Kaku say? If we're off by a factor of 2 in science, and then he said like the globe is off by 10 to 120 to the 120th, it's like the margin of error with the Earth and the universe is off the charts.
Yeah, orders
But
of
yet
magnitude.
it's accepted. Yeah.
Go ahead, Bansal. You're trying to get it.
No, I'm just saying like.
Go, Ron.
ahead.
Finish what you're saying, mate, and then I'll jump in.
No, I made my point. I was just saying like they're making claims like these wild ass speculations and passing them off as truth because they have this aura of this appeal to authority. Like no, they know, they're NASA, they know. And so we're supposed to accept it as fact even when it's off by orders of magnitude.
Power of propaganda.
So what is off by 120 orders of magnitude? What exactly is that we're off by? What is that model or whatever?
The Earth and the universe, the universal model.
Wrong.
Yeah.
That's not off. We know the size of the Earth.
Sure we do.
Oh, you do?
Yes. We're not off by 120 orders of magnitude on the size of the Earth.
How do you know?
How much
Yeah, I don't think
matter.
the
We're not
quote
off
is
by
reference to the
120
size of the Earth.
magnitude.
How do you know?
I don't. Somebody else does. We're not off by 120 orders of magnitude.
No, that's
What are
not.
we
That's
off
not a
by
reference to
120
the
orders of
radius of
magnitude?
the Earth. It's
You
a
just said
reference, I
somebody else
think,
knows
to
that. You said I don't know
like
that, but
dark
somebody else.
energy.
See, you're assuming, you're making assumptions.
My
Well,
question
go
stands.
Bansal before you lose your thought.
No, I was just going to say, I'm back on the gas pressure thing. Like when you say gas pressure without a container, like gas pressure and atmospheric pressure are defined two very distinctly different ways. Very, very distinctly different ways. They are two different things by the definition.
Yeah, atmospheric pressure is a type of gas pressure.
But
right?
gas pressure, as it is defined, requires a container, right?
But is gas pressure atmospheric pressure?
All right. So, and atmospheric pressure is the pressure of the atmosphere. They're defined two very distinctly different ways. So, I think when people are talking about the two, I think they should be clearer with what they're saying.
Well, the word pressure itself implies that there's something being compressed, right? Pressure, compression. You're compressing gas until it builds pressure. So something is compressing the gas. In order to compress something, you need a container. You can't compress unless it's contained.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you that I cannot show you gas pressure without a container, but I can show you
Of course not.
atmosphere that is contained, with the theory of gravity, right?
You can't have one without the other.
Well, gravity is the container on the
No. You have a vacuum. You have,
right?
right? You can't have a
Gravity
vacuum and pressure. They can't coexist.
gravity is the container. That's what the model says.
Right.
Well, even that's a little bit of a problem because stuff goes against gravity, showing it's not much of a container. Most of the time, they swing that pail around and say, see, a force can contain something, but the pail needs to be there. Otherwise, the water just goes off into nowhere. The force is nothing without something to contain it when it goes in a certain direction. The oceans are contained because, quote unquote, gravity or whatever pulls them downward, and the container keeps the water from going any further downward. Most of the time, unless it's evaporating, it's not going up. So stuff is going up against gravity, showing it's not much of a container at all. For it to be a container, it would have to pull everything in that direction, and not everything's pulled in that direction. We got clouds that float, gases that rise. It's very contradictory.
Well, it's mass dependent, isn't it, Lemon?
Supposedly, whatever mass is, I mean, there's like 3 different definitions of what, if anything, mass is. And so we have a bunch of equivocation with that too. I would call mass a collection of different charge fields. Depending on the frequency of the electricity you pump into the thing, it can float, rise, sink, transmute, change. There's a bunch of different things that can happen.